Hey everyone, this is News Before Boobs, bringing you my recap and reaction to the Sony conference at E3. So getting right into it, just a quick note, it started a bit late, 15 minutes, I was so excited for the whole day, waiting for 7 p.m. to come and watch it, and, waiting until 7:15 kind of bummed me out a bit, but anyways, the first thing I started with was the PS Vita, which, unfortunately, I have one. It's fun, but it's kind of been dying off. But they did announce some games for it. They showed Rayman Legends coming to it, Killzone Mercenary, Batman Origins, and Tearaway, along with the announcement that they'd bring God of War 1 and 2, Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy X-2, along with Flower and Dead Nation. That also, the new Walking Dead game 400 Days will be coming in a bundle with it, along with the first season of The Walking Dead, the game. And that's to be released later. And they once again hit on the point that it'll be able to connect to the PS4. They didn't really go in depth or anything, but just that you'll be able to remote play easier as it's built into the PS Vita to function with it. And then it quickly shifted to the PS3. Talked about The Last of Us, quickly showed a trailer. Just kind of building up the hype just a bit more. I'm getting it day one. I'm locking myself basically in my basement and playing that game and enjoying it. Maybe take a break from Man of Steel, but that's about it. Then they showed Puppeteer, a platform game. Rain, this kind of like indie-like game. Kind of gave like a The Unfinished Swan kind of vibe. It had like these invisible people. You really gotta see a trailer or like the game itself to really get a hold of it, and that's to be released in 2013 in the fall. And then they showed the basically last big exclusive, the two last big exclusives to PS3. Beyond Two Souls, it kind of showed Ellen Page's character going to military school, going into action, and this is really different from what they first showed with like the whole psychic vibe thing. This was more of like an actiony thing, but I think haven't really looked too much into it, but I think that might be like the whole Two Souls thing, or that's what I believe it to be. Then they showed Gran Turismo 6. Looked really great. Great racing sim. I'm not really into racing games, but if you're a Gran Turismo fan, it looked really beautiful. And then a bit about Arkham Origins. It looks like the first two games, which is a good thing. Looks great. You got to see Bane, Joker, Deathstroke. I feel like I'm forgetting someone else. Black Mask, which will be released in October 25th to PS3. And the kind of theme that Sony did, they had a lot of exclusive content, but on multi-platform games. So it's kind of those like you only have like an hour extra mission or something like that. Instead of having really a lot of exclusives, which was kind of a bummer to me. But like on this one, they have exclusive content like Nightfall and like 1960s Batman suit. So, I already plan on getting Arkham Origins for the PS3, but it's not because of the exclusive content or anything like that. And then they just had a quick bit about GTA 5. At first, I was really excited about like some like partnership deal about DLC or something like that, but when it gets released in September, there'll be a bundle with PS3 500 gigabytes for $300, and you can also buy a GTA themed Pulse headset for $180. But it's a bit late to be jumping on the PS3 bundle right now, but obviously if you are going to be buying a PS3 this late in the cycle, I do recommend getting that the bundle with that. And about the Pulse headsets, I don't really know how they are, but $100 is a lot. Personally, I use a pair of Turtle Beach's PX21s, and they work just fine, but if you really want to, go for it, kind of thing. And then, the moment we were all waiting for, they finally got to the PS4. They, right away, right to the point, they showed it off. It's kind of sleek. From up top, it looks just like kind of like an Xbox One. And that, like, it kind of has, like, the whole, like, divided in half, with, like, half being black and the kind of gray thing. And it's kind of multi-layered with like a strip in between, and it's not so venti, I guess. But I'll put a picture as the thumbnail so you can see for yourself. It looks a bit better than the Xbox One. Doesn't look great, but it still looks pretty. It doesn't look ugly. It doesn't look like an old VCR, so it'll do kind of thing. Then luckily they only spent like 5 to 10 minutes. Kind of worried me about talking about TVs and movies, but they were talking about just like all the Sony productions and Sony movies kind of thing. And I would just like to say they gave a shout out to Community as the first TV show they mentioned, alongside with Breaking Bad, had in the middle of the screen, which I was a really big fan of, as Community is my favorite show. 6 seasons and a movie, and I've just, if any support that they can gain, even if it's from something like that, it goes a long way. They also finished up talking about Video Music Unlimited, just another way to rent and play music and movies on your PS3. I don't have any experience with it. Yeah, it's just another feature to add on. Then they talked about adding Redbox Instant and then live event like UFC. They showed wrestling, on-demand stuff, and then Flickster as well. And then they moved away, luckily, from the TVs and movies and back towards the PS4. Yohei Yoshida came on and talked about that there are 30 PS4 games by first-party developers, I believe, in development. I was just writing down these notes really quick, so don't get mad at me if they're wrong. That 20 are due out in the first year, and that of those 20, 12 are new IPs. But unfortunately, we didn't see as many as I thought we would from them, but I'll get to that in a bit. Then they showed Santa Monica and Ready at Dawn, showing this pretty cool game set in 1886. It's called The Order 1886, and it's kind of this kind of older medieval, like just dealing with guns and werewolves kind of thing, which actually seems really cool. No gameplay, just CG, but even then, I'm excited for that game. Let's see, and then they were showing recaps of the 4 games that they already announced: Killzone, Shadowfall, Drive Club, Infamous Second Sons, and Knack. The playthroughs on PlayStation.com if you want to check them out, that they had done earlier before the show. And then just a quick overview of what the games are. Killzone, first-person shooter, looks different than the other Killzones, which is a good thing. It looks really great. I'll probably be getting that day one with my PS4. Drive Club, another racing sim, PS4 exclusive, of course. There's been a lot of racing games today, and it's kind of hard to distinguish yourself from it, but as I'm not even a racing fan to begin with, but if you're into racing, it does look well. So if you're into wanting next gen on PS4, that's probably the game for you. Then Knack, kind of this fun kind of platformer action game that they showed. The creator from Japan Studios has a lot of works in like Spyro and Ratchet and Clank games and stuff like that, so I have high hopes for that. And then Infinite Second Sons, that's a game that's exclusive that they've announced so far that I'm most excited for, but unfortunately it won't be released until early 2014, but Killzone, Drive Club, and Knack will all be launch titles. But I did think Infamous was going to be a release title, and it looked so good, and I'm actually so excited to see more gameplay of it, as it was just so fluid and stuff like that, that I don't want to wait till 2014. After that, they showed this like Quantic Dream tech demo thing. It was called the Dark Sorcerer. I think it's just a tech demo. It's not actually a game. It looked amazing. It showed off the tech, but I'd rather if Quantic Dream just worked on an actual game, or have made that into a game, or if it is a game, I don't know. I didn't really get the grasp of that really well. That might just be me, but it was kind of tough to follow, but I don't think it's a game. And then after that, they went into a more indie section of it. They talked about The Witness being a puzzle game, and then they brought out Supergiant Games to talk about Transistor. It's kind of these games, indie games, are kind of hard to describe. It's one of those things you just have to look up for yourself, but Transistor is kind of like this top-down action game where all these like top high-end people are disappearing, and then this person named Brett has to like obviously try and avoid this happening to her. And it looks like a cool kind of top-down action game, which I'll be checking out later. And then they showed these, I believe, 8 indie games that'll be I don't know if they are all exclusive to PS4, like their wording was kind of off, or if they just come to PS4 first. But anyways, game called Don't Starve from the creators of Shank, and it's kind of like this adventure game. You kill zombies and you just going from the title Don't Starve. It's just kind of like a survival action kind of game. Then they showed Mercenary Kings, which is a 2D scroller shooter. Yeah, from the creators of Scott Pilgrim. Octodad, which I hadn't really heard of before. It's this all they really showed was this awkward octopus kind of walking around. Then there's Secret Ponchos, which is this shooter slash fighting western. That one actually looked pretty cool. Look more into that one. Then they showed Raise, which is this stealth action puzzler, they described it, but basically you're this guy that died and you have to raise an army of zombies to try and find out how you died. And that one actually looked pretty cool as well. Then there's Outlast, this scary first-person game where you're basically carrying around a camera and basically crapping your pants if you step of the way. Then there's Outworld New and Tasty, which is a remake of the one Outworld game. Then there's Galaxy, which is like it's like a ship shooter kind of thing, where you're in a ship and you're shooting other ships kind of thing. It's a side scroller and supposedly it's open world as well. And yes, these supposedly are exclusive to PS4. I don't know if it's timed or if it's permanent kind of thing. And then they brought out Diablo 3, just for a quick tidbit that you can get exclusive items from franchises, like Drake's Amulet and shoulder guards from with the poncho from Journey, that kind of thing. Really small stuff. Then they showed Square Enix, where they announced that Final Fantasy Versus 8 has now become Final Fantasy 15, and they also finally showed Kingdom Hearts 3, just a teaser trailer of it, and I think their wording was really off and they weren't really showing many exclusives, so it's hard to know what they were. But I believe those two games are actually going to be multi-platform from what I've been reading. But if not, I'll put an annotation or something in the thing. But Final Fantasy XIV has been confirmed to be exclusive to PS3 and PS4. But they didn't say that for Final Fantasy 15, which makes you assume that it's multi-platform, else they would have said. Then they showed Assassin's Creed 4, actual gameplay, not trailers. But unfortunately, there was a lot of glitches and still frames, and at the end, it kind of glitched out and stopped, and it was kind of awkward at the end. But from what they showed, it actually seemed pretty cool. It was more stealthy. You basically followed a guy, and then they showed the Force, which looked really well. You could actually crouch, and the tree climbing and jumping was still back. So it still looked pretty good, but the kind of glitches like that still kind of worry you at the same time. And then they showed Watch Dogs again from Ubisoft, and this was again gameplay, and they were just talking about the multiple ways to play it. Then they showed this cool way to hack and then tell the one guy where to move and stuff like that. And just one thing, if you're into Watch Dogs, there was the one guy that you're helping says something about then helping you find your sister. So I think that might be part of the premise of the game. Maybe it's just a mission, but I think it might be kind of like one of the reasons and motivations for the main character. And then they also showed a mobile player on a tablet helping him out. As the whole E3, there's been a lot of tablet and iPhone integration into it. And that, along with AC4, supposedly has exclusive hour of content, just like Assassin's Creed 3 did, and for Watch Dogs' new outfit. Then they talked about sports for just a tiny bit, and then they actually referenced Los Angeles Kings losing in double overtime, which I was kind of surprised. It's not that big of a hockey market, but even then it was just a nice little reference. Then they just showed a quick tidbit about NBA 2K14. LeBron James did look really realistic in it. Didn't really see a need for it, but I guess it's just trying to cater to all the people. Then they showed the Elder Scrolls Online, which I was actually surprised to see. I'll admit I haven't played Skyrim. I didn't really buy into the hype. I have it. It's just a really big time sink that you have to put into it, and I just commit so much of my time right now into that game. But from what I've seen, it looks just like Skyrim. It looks epic. It looks great, and it looks exciting. So if I ever do get through Skyrim, I'll be sure to get that game. And they announced that game's coming to PS4, not an exclusive, in spring 2014, but there is a beta exclusive first. So once again, with the whole theme of possibly timed exclusives or just like content exclusives, which is actually really disappointing. Then it showed Mad Max from adapted from the movie. Just a quick little thing, just as a teaser. And then they once again talked about another exclusive pack. Didn't really see the point, but there's a lot of multi-platform games in Sony's presentation. And then there was a quick tidbit. I think these numbers are right. For the PS4, they're currently 140 games in development, with around 40 being exclusive, but overall there'll be 100 in the first year of PS4. And then they got to the part that really stole the show, and it's gonna basically be the topic on the internet and videos for like the next week. As you know, as if you're probably watching this, Microsoft has DRM. It needs to check the internet every 24 hours, and that there's used game restrictions that they'll basically leave up to the publishers, and that you can't lend games, or else you have to be on their friends list, and it's complicated and it's a hassle, and it's not like it is this generation where you can just give your games to whoever you want. But they did say on PS4 supports used games. You can trade them into GameStop if you want, just like you can now. You can sell it to another person. Like if you have a friend and you don't want it, but you don't want to just give it to them, you can sell it. You can lend it for just a short amount of time, or you can keep it forever. Basically saying that there's no restrictions. Sony's basically saying we trust the consumers with our games. They're not going to pirate it. We trust you to do what you want with the game. We're not going to put the restrictions. And also that you don't need to have an internet connection at any time to play single-player games. Obviously, for multiplayer, you need internet, but there won't be online checks for checking to make sure the game's yours or any complicated stuff like that. So that was actually really refreshing. Then just a couple of features that they talked about that they already knew. You can play as the game's downloading. There's cross-game chat. Supposedly there's this thing about the friends list where I believe they're just gonna like use Facebook and stuff like that to transfer like your real friends onto your friends list and then like use their names instead of gamer tags and stuff like that, I believe. And then they just said a quick thing about the share button with Ustream. And then they got into PlayStation Plus. It'll carry over. However, though, this was basically with like the lack of new exclusives that they announced was probably the biggest letdown for people. That for PS4 you're gonna need PlayStation Plus service to play online games, multiplayer games. I mean, which it kind of makes sense. I'll put a video up later going more in depth. Like, Xbox has so much extra revenue that they can put into more servers, dedicated servers and stuff like that, and that it's just a better online service. So basically Sony needed the extra money to fund the games, and if we're being honest, PlayStation Plus is already a great service to begin with. I think I have 50 games on my PlayStation that are from PlayStation Plus. That's only within like a year and a half, and these are there's some high quality games on there. So I actually do just recommend, if you have a PlayStation, just get PlayStation Plus anyway. And they are putting in incentives to make sure that you don't feel so gypped out of it. And the PlayStation Plus will stay the same. You can get it for $50 for a whole year. And on release, you can get Drive Club for free. So if you're even thinking about getting Drive Club, you get PlayStation Plus. You're going to get more games throughout the service for that and PS3 and stuff like that. I recommended just getting it now, so that way you can get like Uncharted 3 and stuff like that that's coming out. You get Drive Club for free. They release new games every month. They talked about some of the indie games I was talking about. I can't remember which ones for sure. I think it was like I don't want to say it and get it wrong, but there was 3 out of the 8 indie games I said earlier. Those are going to be on free on PlayStation Plus, and then they release new games every month. So it's just a great deal to begin with that I think will, at first there'll be a bit of hate about having to pay for online, but I think they'll get over it. And the last gameplay they showed was Destiny. It was actual gameplay for the first time, not CGI, and it was actually fairly lengthy, I believe like 10-15 minutes. But it was beautiful. It's a big open world that's like ever changing, but it really did give off like a first person. I mean, Borderlands is also first person, but it gave off like a Borderlands vibe. Talking about loot. The gameplay itself, it's tough to judge like an open world off like just a short 10-15 minutes, but the gameplay itself seemed ordinary. But so I really think it's going to be like the real-time events that really separate it from other ones, if it's going to separate at all, or if it's just going to fall into another first-person shooter. Then they talked about Gaikai quickly. They said that it's going to be released in 2014, but first in the US. So I live in Canada, so I don't know when the service is going to be. They say 2014. You don't really know when it's going to get to Europe, Japan, Australia, or anything like that, so that's a bit concerning. But at least it is going to be eventually be a form, whenever it comes out, to get it backwards compatibility to a catalog of PS3 games. Whether you're going to have to like rebuy these games, that's still to be announced. But what I got away from this press conference is that I think they still have a lot of cards in their deck. They had 2 points. They had the used games, and this last point that I'm going to get to. They're releasing it for $400, which is actually $100 cheaper than the Xbox One, despite the fact it actually has better hardware in it. Now, I think part of it is Sony learned last time you can't release a console for like $600. No one's going to buy it. $100 is a lot of money that will sway a lot of people. People will buy the cheaper console. And I think what really screwed over the Xbox One was having to have this new powerful Kinect, which without it, it's probably able to launch $100 cheaper. But I do believe the PS4 is released with the PlayStation Eye. I'm not 100%. Yeah, details are still being worked out. Everything hasn't been revealed yet. There's just obviously with the conference and tidbits of information are being released as they go. And they didn't give really a window. They said this holiday season in North America and Europe. So they didn't say Japan. I think if it was going to be released before the Xbox, they would have said. Supposedly the Xbox window is like November 1st to 5th. So I feel like it's going to probably be mid to late November is probably the time it's going to be. But like I said, there's still quite a few months left in between that and the release, so there'll be more information. So that's the recap of it. They ended with the bombshell of the $400. Overall, I felt the games in the conference were a bit lacking. They, unlike the Xbox One, they kind of revealed some of their more release exclusives already, so it felt less shocking when they like talked about Killzone, Infamous, Knack, and Drive Club. Didn't have that same impact of because you've already seen it before. And other than that, they didn't really have any exclusives. They had like the Order 1886 from Santa Monica and Ready at Dawn. Then everything else basically, except for like the indie games, like all the main games they showed, they were basically all multi-platform with just only like an hour or so worth of exclusive content, or not like even that for like Diablo 3. But they didn't really harp on that, but still, which kind of makes you wonder if they're talking about like the 30 or 40 exclusives that are in development. Where are they? Unless those are including the indie games, which then really brings that number down. But like we didn't hear from Naughty Dog, which was kind of surprising. You'd think they'd have like an Uncharted or something reveal. Media Molecule. There's just a couple of missions that were kind of strange to see. So, if you looked at just a game perspective, if you're more into like that first-person shooter, mainstream kind of thing, you could honestly say that maybe Microsoft had the better conference, for games, but I still prefer the PS4 exclusives. Infamous looks like the best exclusive so far for me. Killzone looks great, which I think kind of cancels out like Titanfall and that kind of. Drive Club, in my opinion, like cancels out Forza, and Rise is, I don't think, as good as Infamous, but I also think that Infamous, not Infamous, Sony hasn't played all their cards yet. I think they have a good amount of exclusives that they haven't announced yet, as they didn't really name any mainstream exclusives, which they're either holding to their chest to play at a later date, or it's a troubling sign that they don't have more. But knowing Sony and their exclusives, I believe it's just a matter of time. Maybe they're later in the year, like summer 2014 or something like that, and they just wanted to talk about all the games that will be released more in their launch window. But like I said, what really won the conference over was the fact that they are keeping their used game policy the same. There's no restrictions, there's no online checking or anything like that, which is actually a big relief. I don't really do a lot of buying used games. Sometimes at GameStop they only have used games for like some of the older games that you're trying to catch up on. But I do lend my friends, my friends to games. I lend my games to friends quite a bit, as I've built up a decent library here. And you know, it'd be a pain like if you can't just be like, oh yeah, here's my game, you can borrow it for a bit, instead of them like having to purchase their full game, which I know hurts the developers a bit. But there's also been times where I lend my friends games and then they buy it themselves because they really liked it, and I just like how there's not a hassle and anything like that. And like I said, there's no internet connection, and being $400, I think that's really gonna push like people that are like 50-50 on the fence of whether I'm buying a PS4 or an Xbox One. Well, when you look at it, if you can buy and sell used games at your leisure without having to worry about the hassle, if you can lend games to your friends, well, yeah, at all, without having to worry about an internet connection, which I don't think is that big of a deal, but it does play a factor to some. And the fact that it's $100 cheaper, like if you're like a mom or dad and you're buying a console for your kid, and they're like, oh, these consoles are basically the same, well then you're gonna save the $100. So earlier I said I gave Xbox One or the Microsoft Conference an 8.5 or a 9. I don't feel there was good enough games for Sony to give it like a 9 or a 9.5 or anything like that, so I'll say the Xbox One got an 8.5, and I'll say Sony just mainly on the fact that they still support used games and for being $100 cheaper, and the fact that I do believe that there's going to be some more exclusives that they'll be announcing. I'll give it an 8.8. So that's all for now. I do plan on making videos about the Ubisoft and EA conference, along with a bunch of shorter length videos about some of the features that are coming up on the new consoles for both Xbox One and PS4. And yeah, I think that's all for now. So I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and have a good day.